Development. It is designed to serve professionals involved in all aspects of electrical and computing fields and related areas of science and technology that underlie modern civilization. Interesting fact is that IEEE has a community of 420,000 members from all professions, including students, doctors, engineers, and professionals, and 5 million IEEE Explore content. Okay, so here is communities. IEEE has more than 40 societies to engage people on their own. Here are some societies: IEEE Aerospace and Electronic Systems Society, IEEE Antennas and Propagation Society, IEEE Circuits and Systems Society, IEEE Components, Packaging and Manufacturing Society. Okay, so here is our program. IEEE Potential Development Webinar Series. Right time to start a new life. The main purpose of this webinar series is to engage maximum people with this fruitful and healthy activity in this pandemic situation. There are interesting topics with great speakers, and we will spend some good time together. Okay, and here is series timeline. We have total 8 webinars on top themes: mental well-being, research methodology, personal development, sustainable development, and coherent national research agenda in Pakistan. Find your inner skills and start making money. Study of COVID-19 from perspective of control systems. If you don't find it, then create it. Time management. Okay, so today's speaker is Dr. J.S. Javed from King Consultants Education, Bangalore, India, and he will talk about research methodology. Dr. J.S. Javed is an active speaker and motivator on analog circuit design, high-speed interface design, design thinking, entrepreneurship, research methodologies, technical writing, and spirit of entrepreneurship. He is the founder of King Consultants Education, where he works as a coach on experiential learning and design thinking. He has a PhD from the Indian Institute of Science. He builds silicon chips, integrated circuits for a living. He is a senior member of the IEEE and was inducted into the IEEE Itakapunu, the Honor Society of IEEE. Okay, so here is the activity we have for you during the webinar. What you need to do is take a screenshot of the webinar or take a selfie with the webinar. Share your experience on your Facebook or Instagram and mention us on these Facebook and Insta IDs. An additional certificate and special shout out on our Insta account. Hand over to Dr. G.S. Javed.
Please, doctor, you may start now.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me for giving a wonderful talk. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And my name is Dr. G. Javed. I'm a PhD and I'm a senior member of IEEE. As mentioned, I'm also a founder of King Consultants Education, the company I run. And with regards to IEEE, I have been a member of IEEE for almost 14 years now, right from 2006 onwards to 2020. And let's begin. Before I go into research methodology, I would love to talk about some things about myself and my particular research which I'm doing. The various kind of roles that I have, that I do perform on a day-to-day basis. I'm an entrepreneur at first. I'm also an invited speaker, a leader, and a volunteer of various activities. I have a passion for photography and I'm an admirer of nature. There are five particular projects I'm working with or have worked before. First project is integrated instrumentation circuit design, biomedical diagnosis, or the lab on a chip. These are the various circuit designs which I have done for the lab. The second project which I have done is called electrothermal electrical characterization of analog and RF integrated circuits. So this is basically based on RF testing on chips. Project is the current one which I'm doing is on high-speed circuits, where I'm building circuits for 1.25 to 40 Gbps per line. While doing those projects, I am also doing high-frequency phase lock loops, designing PLLs all the way from 2.5, 5, 10, 16, and 20 gigahertz frequencies. While doing this, I have an interest towards IoT applications where I'm doing an energy harvest integrated sensor system also. So for the people who are interested, now let us know what is the research methodology, and I'll take you a brief outline to what I'm going to do. So we will first know about what is research and how. Then we will know what is the research scope for an undergraduate, postgraduate, and a PhD student. Then we will understand what are the various research processes and methods. An important step we will discuss on self-preparation, which is called C3LPR. We will see what it means. Then we will understand how do you define a problem, what is a good problem, how do you identify and define it, and finally, what is the method of solution that people do. What is research? Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying, but with a purpose. When you want to know what about something, about any activity, any topic, any news, if you are able to answer these questions about where is the source and what is to be done, why we need to do it, who can give us the source or who has done it before and who can take it forward, what is the need for doing it or what is the expected outcome, how do we go ahead and do it, and when do we plan to do it or when do we need to do it. So when you answer these topics, you are basically conducting research. Research is basic to discover new questions, seek answers to questions. Basic research deals often is driven by curiosity, fundamental and general knowledge, or for understanding. High impact examples include relativity theory, DNA, quantum theory, etc. Applied research is driven by practical needs. High impact examples include computers, transistors, vaccinations, smartphones, etc. Now, what is necessary for research? And specifically, I would like to say what would be necessary for electrical engineering research. Whenever you need to do any search, find a data, get an analysis, or look it up on the world, it is called research. You would first need to understand what is the background required. Fundamentally, you would need curiosity to do the work. Next, system fundamentals and basics have to be taken care of. Next, the fundamental understandings and the rigorous mathematics needed to prove or disprove the activities, and various engineering tools like software and hardware for simulation or for implementation. Next comes in is what and skills needed. So you need to know how to think logically, how to start to do research, how do you find qualitative references, make a how do you manage the research progress, how to present the result, whether it is oral or written, and how to deal with research results, whether you can take it as a patent or file an article or write a reference article or a journal article. Why do you need to do research? What is the reason? The reasons to publish and research is they generally lend credibility to you by your thesis or in your dissertation research. It helps you land a better job when you do research post PhD. It also helps to stake out IP claims prior to patenting. Generally, when you do research, there are a lot of good methods to be followed. These methods to be followed are we will discuss in a few slides. It's also an opportunity to influence the research of others. In most of the cases in academia, it is required for promotions to be done in most. It helps in bringing attention to yourself to facilitate your funding activities for your various projects, and it also gives you bragging rights when it gets published by your university or from your organization. What is the research process and what is the method it is followed with? The first step is problem formulation. After formulation, you will understand what is the initiation and definition of the problem. Next, you will go ahead to find out what are the methods of solution and then solve it, which proposes the solution and execute. Then you would look and complete the presentation that is being done. Right before doing the presentation, you could get the benefits of doing an intellectual property, which could be a patent that you could file for. If there is no patent filing needed or required, you would further go ahead and then publish the article as a technical article either in a conference or a journal. Now, let us spend a few minutes to understand what is the scope of research for undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD. In the undergraduate level, you are expected to pick one of the methods of the solutions provided and solve it and do a presentation. The expectation of doing anything else is generally kept only for special candidates or if the scope of time, scope of interest and the time available is large. In the postgraduate methods, after the problem is defined, the postgraduate students are expected to find the various methods of solving it and then pick one of the methods to solve it. Once we solve it, we have to do a presentation, either oral or written. And while doing a written, we could always expect them to write to a conference or a journal. This is a typical expectation across the world. But for a doctoral student, there are many more things that needs to be identified. First, the doctoral student is expected to identify what is the area of interest, and within that area, what is the solvable problem that can be identified. Once a problem is identified, we need to formulate it. And so these are the two extra steps a doctoral student is expected to do. Mind you, they are also always encouraged to do an intellectual property or typically file a patent. So what are the types of research questions and the results that are coming up? Type of research questions could be explorative, descriptive, evaluative, explanatory, predictive, and applied research. What does exploratory research in simple terms mean? You typically are going to give the framework for the design. Basically, you have to answer the question, what's out there? Then comes the descriptive ones, where you define the principles of what they are operating on. Typical questions that needs to be answered, what does it look like? How does it work? Next comes evaluative, or you're looking for empirical results. How well does a method solve a problem? How can we solve this problem using different methods? So you evaluate the problem. Further, you go ahead and do explanatory research, where you give the reasons or the causes for it. Why does something happen the way it happens? This is a typical question that needs to be answered. In predictive models, it would say, what would happen if a particular variable is changed and how would it respond? In applied research, it is typically where can it be used or where can I put it to good use? A very important point, which is the part 4, is how do you prepare yourself for research? C3LPR. This is an abbreviation which I have generated to understand what it takes to do research. Curiosity. You need to allow yourself to ask questions. Critical thinking. Allow you to challenge the assumptions that are present. Learning. Take you to the frontier of knowledge. Persistence. So that you don't give up. Always be at it. Respect the data. Ensure your research. Don't neglect the points. Communication. Allow yourself to publish your work and communicate it to fellow students and to the peers and networks world over. So this stands for C3LPR. What do you mean by critical thinking? We will elaborate just a few points of C3LPR. The habit of asking questions, especially to why questions. Why do you need to ask these questions? Why we need to do an activity? Why do we need to have this particular method? Why is this research important? Ask these questions why. Always try to make sense of what you have read or heard. Don't let any question pass by. Get used to challenging everything. Make it a habit to challenge a particular decision and find out what are the reasons behind those challenges so that now you understand how you perceive and what is the expectation of that decision. Some practical advice to all the people listening. Question every claim made in a paper or a talk. Find a way if you can argue the other way than what is claimed. Try to write two opposite reviews of a paper. One mainly to argue for accepting the paper and the other for rejecting it. This will help you to find out if there are any lacunae or there are any gaps that needs to be filled or if there are some very good observations made in the paper. Pros and cons will be identified. Further, force yourself to challenge one point in every talk that you attend and raise a question. At the end of this talk, there is a Q&A session. So I would like you people to find one point in each talk of mine and find out what you would like to raise a question about. Respect the data and be truthful. Always be honest with the experiment results. Do not throw away negative results. Always try to learn from the negative results. These negative results generally have a hitting point, which, when answered, will give rise to wonderful experimental results. Always be objective in data analysis and interpretation. Do not mislead the readers. Be clear with what you would like to convey. Aim at understanding or explanation instead of just presenting good results. Paper typically needs to educate people, not just give out results. Research output is also to understand the same, where you would like to understand what is the problem rather than just give out the results of what the research work is being executed. Be careful not to overgeneralize. It is both good and bad results. You may be very far from the truth when you generalize it. An important point that works in part of the C3LPR and how we work ourselves is communication. General communication skills would be very important when doing research. It need not be a matter of English language. It can be in your own hometown language or your mother tongue, but it is expected to be a native language and need to have a good command orally and in a written format. You also need to understand what is formal and informal communication skills. It is a good habit to talk to people with different levels of backgrounds or different levels of language understanding, such that you fine tune your methods to communicate to the people. Be concise, clear, accurate, and adaptive. Always elaborate your work with examples and summarize it by abstraction. English proficiency is good when you're working in a global language, but it shouldn't stop you from your communication. Get used to talking to people from different fields. Now, let me take 2 minutes to understand why I say get used to talking to people from different fields. I am an electronics engineer who does work on signal processing and microelectronics, and I build chips and circuits. This was the work I used to carry out during my PhD. I used to have a good communication friend circle in my PhD institute, the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. There was a problem among one of the students in the microbiology department who used to work on understanding how to measure the rate of growth of cells, especially for cancer cells, or for largely uh, large division of cells, especially mitotically dividing them. To identify the rate of growth of cells is generally we look is what happens we see is we look at a volume of development and see in a petri dish how much of a petri dish gets filled in a particular time span, and they understand that what is the rate of growth. This particular problem gave a unique application for my research work wherein I utilized my capacitance sensor interface to identify what is the volume growth of flux. This ended up giving me one of my best papers and also solving one very important problem, which is called in vivo measurement of rate of growth of cells. So you could choose call this as cell rate volume monitoring, and you can use it for various laboratory studies and also for clinical studies when you're working with large amount of cells. This gives you an understanding that your motivation for solving a problem could come from any direction. And also, your own problem solution could be a solution for another department or another student in another area of work who could just easily be solving using one of your solutions as an analogy. That is why I always say get used to talking to people from different fields. Good communication fosters shared understanding. Words I choose to share my understanding with you has what is expected from your thought process when it goes to the person whom you speak or you are going to share it. If they understand the same information, then it is called good communication. What are the general communication skills? Oral and written, formal and informal, and always be concise, clear, accurate, and adaptive. This is very important. There is a saying that you should always be persistent when you're doing your research work. If you're not persistent, things might not be generally easy. So don't quit. Keep doing it. Only work on topics which are passionate to you. Work on hypotheses that you believe in. Conclusions prematurely. Don't give up easily. Positive results may be hidden within those negative results. Once the cloud or the fog around the negative results is cleared, a lot of positive results might come up. Be comfortable with criticism. Think of various possibilities of repositioning your work. Like an example, my understanding of capacitance sensors gave rise to a repositioning my work in the biology department or in the life sciences to understand the growth of cells. You could use something like that by being very persistent. You need to optimize your training. Being a research student and while doing research, you are getting trained for the various researches that you're going to do and execute in the future. You typically need to know your strengths and weaknesses. The best way to do it is perform a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. You need to understand being strong versus being strong in system development. Be creative versus thorough. If you could know which one is your strength, you could definitely working on improving them. You need to train yourself to fix weaknesses. But if there are times that you can't train yourself in those weaknesses, but you need to find strategic partners whose strengths can overcome or overlap with your weaknesses, so that both of you can work on your strengths. Position yourself to always take advantage of your strengths. With that said, to the place where we say understanding of problem going through a mental and a social understanding of how the problem needs to be defined. Charles Kettering long back said, problem well stated is a problem half solved. Now let's go about understanding how problem definition is done. While working on problem solving, you need to identify what is the method that you would like to solve using that problem. The end result for this particular problem is to seal a box to transport. Let us assume you have a box and this particular box is made up of wooden blocks, and these wooden blocks or crates will carry load and you need to seal them for a good transport. So what are the maze inputs that are needed to seal this box? Among the various inputs, the hammer and need a nail. So what happens when you look for a problem? So let us look for three particular cases. I have a hammer. I will go looking to find a nail to seal the box with. So that is called a tool driven. When I have a nail, I need to go find a hammer. This is application driven. In some cases, you need to have a nail, find a nail, and then find or make a relevant hammer. This problem is generally an open-ended problem. So these are the three phases of problem development. So open-ended could be an exploratory research where you have to find what is the nail or find what is the problem and find what is the hammer is, how to solve the problem. In some cases, you know that fundamental research was done and a result is obtained. How do you take this result and build an application out of it? That would be called an application-driven development. Now, when you don't have and a basic research needs to be done, for example, in this case, COVID-19 that is happening, you need to understand that a lot of virology study is needed and a way to detect and how to solve that problem is needed. These are going to be tool-driven or basic fundamental research where you have to look for a very fundamental way to solve the problem. Let's look at how do you look at application-driven problems. If application driven, you need to identify a need by people and the users that cannot be satisfied well currently. Could be complaints, data information management systems, or your protection system, security, or any other problems there in the civil domain, in the chemical domain, in the mechanical domain, etc. Identify one technical challenge as your topic. Then formulate or frame the appropriately, you can solve it. Once you formulate the problem, you understand what is the next, you aim at completing a new application. After a given application is done, the new as that you understand to solve a series of problems and use it for a good solution. Because an application needs multiple applications to be looked at. Now, a few questions. How difficult is it to solve the problem? If it's not a very big challenge, then you should definitely do a startup. Because startup is not necessarily meaning big technical problem. It's a simple technical problem that you're able to solve, but start going to business understanding, finding the correct market fit for it, positioning it, and doing it. So it's always good if a technical challenge is not big. But if there are lots of technical challenges, it's good to write a research proposal because that would give rise to multiple research problems and you can look for solutions. And once the solutions are available, you can go ahead and look for startup development and look for seeing how that solution can be used out to the public and help the humankind and the nature also. In another case, when it is tool driven, it's like when you have a hammer, right? Everything tries to look like a nail. Anything you would want to hit into the box and pack it. So typically, this is how we begin. So choose state-of-the-art tools. Ideally, you could have a secret weapon with you, which helps you doing great research in some activity. Otherwise, you will try and look at tools from nearby. Then you should look at, given the tool, what you would, what are the possible applications that you could utilize it. The common tool right now being used in the world is artificial intelligence or machine learning. Now, people are now in a way where they have the tool with them and now they are looking for various applications to utilize the artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence in healthcare, trying to use it in medicine, we're trying to use it in music, we're trying to use it in image processing, trying to use it in video processing, trying to use it in share markets, trying to use it in various data-driven applications, trying to do various data analysis. So using one tool, you can see there are lots and lots of applications. So this is what you do when you say find for possible applications. Then using the tools, you find what is the most novel application that you have or you could find. Then within that, identify one technical challenge as your topic. Further, then formulate and frame the problem appropriately so that you can solve. So let's aim at finding an important extension of the tool. What do you mean that extension? You are looking at having an extension and use the best hammer. So, like I said, I will repeat again for the same thing. How difficult is it to solve your problem? If there are no big technical challenges, do a startup. And if there are lots of technical challenges, write a research proposal. For example, if you look at artificial intelligence, you could see there are thousands of startups which have started all around the world who are trying to utilize AI as a tool. Now, I am one of those people who would like to use AI into education, how to use people, how to use this information and help people, how to utilize it to help the people who are not able to understand, who are not able to pick up easily, or who have a reading deficit. How can you utilize that? So these are some of the new problems that I am myself working at towards my educational and experience learning, where I'm working in King Consultants. So you people are also most welcome to engage with me to find out what kind of solutions or what kind of problems that we can help solve. Problem solving loop. This is one of the most common slides that you can most places. The problem solving loop first looks at how to identify the problem. To identify the problem, you would look at exploring information and creating ideas. Once you create multiple of ideas, say 4 or 5 ideas to understand how to solve the problem, you have to now start looking at what is the best probable way of solving the idea and select one of them. Once you select, you have to build and test the idea. How do you build and test? There are 3 ways generally people do it. One, either simulate it. If you're the next step is do a hardware solution, or if you're not able to simulate, you need to kind of do a survey to find out how that survey or opinion of that solution matters. Generally, if you could incorporate a flavor or a combination, all three of it, you can find out what is the best solution that works. And after you build and test the idea, you evaluate the result. If the result, evaluation of the result looks good to you, then you have solved the problem. Problem based upon the available results to identify what is the gap that needs to be filled. Once you have fill up those, once you want to identify the gap, then you look at least the value. So, all said and done, there's always a question that's asked, a lot of people ask, which is there a shortcut for starting research? I am a person who believes that shortcuts are not good. But here, the shortcut I would be is going to the nearest available solution and then looking for the next problem. What do I mean by that? You should scan some of the most recently published papers to find papers that you like or can understand. This is basically a lot of literature survey where you can do just by scanning the work. After you scan and identify a certain number of papers which are that you understand and you would like to work on, so basically this is the idea and area identification. Next, after area identification, you need to do problem identification. So you read a lot of such papers in detail, right? Once you read the papers in detail, you will understand that that particular author of that paper has taken already done some background research work that is there in the introduction section. The author then describes what is there in the paperwork to understand what is major ideas in the first, the second, or the third section. Then he or she would have defined what is the experiments done and method to solve that particular problem. And in the final section, you will see that we would have concluded and with or without giving where is the next research going to follow. Always look for papers which give where the research can get followed next. Once you identify those papers, you will help you understand what is the background of the various papers. That will give you new insight on what is the work which is present. Then you need to brainstorm ideas of extending the work. Once you know what is the work which is done, take some time off and extend the work. How would you do it? Start with ideas mentioned in the future work part. Once that is done, systematically question the solidness of the paper. Have the authors answered all questions? Can you think of some of the questions that weren't answered? If it weren't answered, is it worth answering or there is a reason they have not answered? Then you can look at, is there a better of that problem? Is there a better method of solving those problems? So these two things will give a lot of value. Finally, you can give the information on is that evaluation solid? By solid, I mean, is that evaluation very thoroughly understood with mathematical rigor, experimental solutions, and also doing much simulations which are there. This is typically looking at various domains of work that you are looking forward to. After you get all these ideas and formulation and methods, you need to pick one of those ideas and start working on it. Because unless you start working on it, the smaller nitty-gritty works of that will not feature out for you. Once you get in that, these details will give rise to new questions that you can answer and that you can take your research forward. So I will say now we have come to the takeaway portion where we say I would try always says is an old saying, pick a research topic and then I would ask you to answer the questions circle in the red. What are the questions that we answered in this short session? What is the research talking about? Who and why should do the problem, should do the work, and this how and why is going to give the information that you are going to get from the problem solving loop. Finally, who is the person that we are working on? So, researcher is the person that we are looking forward to, who is going to execute this research and do a research method. There are two topics which I have not covered here for a short of time. One is the method of defining the problem is also very critical. So now that I have a few minutes of time, let me take some time and tell you how to define a problem while you go through slide and the ways to reach out to me. There are the ways I said initially where you could explore, apply, and innovate and look for all these topics. But when you need to really find a research topic worth solving, there are two things that you have to always answer. First, after identifying the problem, the importance of before solving that problem comes in identifying and formulation is this problem worth solving? You should always see the worthiness of the solution of the problem. If it is worth solving, you should go ahead and solve. If it is not worth it solving, there is a reason why it is not worth solving. There is already somebody in this world who would have taken an attempt at it and would have brought out that result. Always try and find out why that attempt was done. The easiest way to know if that problem is worth solving or not, look it up in the patent database of the world, either in the US patents, in your country's patents, Indian patents, Chinese patents, Japanese patents, European patents, WIPO. These are generally the places where before the research is started, an idea is already put in and we have already registered that idea or put it up to look how to solve that problem. And that would be a nice place to identify whether your problem is worth solving or not. With that, I will now and I'm open for results, questions that anybody wants to ask, and we will see if there are what are the questions that the students have, that the participants have. Thank you. So, any questions?
Can you please suggest which field or topic is best for thesis of MPhil nowadays?
Could you repeat that question again?
Yes, sure. Sir, can you please suggest which field or topic is best for thesis of MPhil nowadays?
Nowadays, now I am my answer is going to be biased towards engineering because I am basically an engineer. Now, for engineering people, right now, you have to look at solving a problem which is society based.
Okay.
It is not just going to be some research topic that you're looking at. You need to always see is it going to help solve a societal problem? Because the moment it solves a societal problem, the society is made up of all of you. Now, once you start this topic as a philosophical topic, if you look at society, you will have society behavior, you will have engineering topics, you will have economics topics, you will have mechanical and civil topics, chemical topics, all of these will come into picture. Now, if you are looking at an engineering topic, say under the purview of what you are engineering do, I would like to encourage people to identify methods to utilize knowledge improvement in people. How do you enhance knowledge and how do you enhance the ability to disperse more knowledge to the people in the world? So that is, I would say. But if you really specifically ask for a topic, my primary goal would be on innovation-based topics. where entrepreneurs and innovation can come in and two small technical problems can solve. One of the common examples right now I'm looking at is fintech, such
Okay.
as financial technology, finding what is fintech in the world, identify what is a good kind of image and video processing. How do you identify deep fakes? There are a lot of fake videos and fake audios which are coming. So nowadays, research topic would be how to identify if the video is actually said by the original person or is it a computer generated fake image. That would be nice. And always important for national development or world development is data security. What all you can do to keep your data secure so that it does not get
Yes.
misused or it protects. So these are the various topics, evergreen topics in the next decade, which we can always look at.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, as a third year undergraduate student in electronics,
Okay.
I have a keen for research, but have never been able to since my professors have never been encouraging enough. How do I get a good mentor who can help me in the field of microelectronics?
Uh, nice. I myself am a microelectronics person, so I can help you answer that question very clearly. First thing you need to identify is if you do not have a mentor, just always try and reach out to a mentor. The ways to reach out is the internet is very open. There are various universities, industries, laboratories who are trying to do a lot of work. If you are not able to reach out to anybody, start off with reaching out people who are doing webinars like how I am doing and work out this one. Generally, these are the people who are willing to volunteer their time. And these are generally people who can be good mentors. Now, how you identify or reach out to these people? The easiest way and use is something called networking. IEEE is a great platform where you can network with people and reach out to some of the renowned experts in the world. Believe me, you could actually write to these professors or some of these PhD students or postdoctoral scholars who are working with various professors around the world and ask for mentorship. And given their time abilities, they will definitely mentor. And in this case, if you are a student of microelectronics and is looking for a mentor who could guide you through your research work or to guide you to your career, I would be willing to volunteer to help a few of them, especially in the area of microelectronics, especially looking at data converters, PLLs, ADCs, and all of that. So if there is someone, you should sure you can reach out to me.
Okay. So,
There was one question that I have got. Uh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
yes, sir. So while doing research, sometimes we do not have an idea to solve the problem, and we keep looking for the solution and come up
Mhm.
with one idea. We try that idea, and let's say we successfully implement that.
Okay.
How we will develop the strategy to have multiple and creative ideas with us, and then choose the best among them.
Very interesting. So this is something which I regularly do is to find out how can we get multiple such ideas for a given problem. For this, you need to understand is who is going to be the end user of this idea. Now, is this problem a worth solving problem, or it is an imaginary problem, is it an academic problem, or it is a real world problem? Now, once you understand that whether if it is a real world problem, you can always get multiple ideas to solve this. Now, for
Exactly.
example, let me give a quick example. This particular webinar series started off with an idea is that, okay, we are all now locked in a lockdown situation, or we are all sitting in a place where most of the things are not available in physically. Now, why not we utilize this time to gain more knowledge, gain more skills, to improve our personality and develop ourselves. So that was the problem. What was the solution the people came up with, or the hosts or the organizers of the web series? They said, why not? Let us do a webinar series. We can reach out to people anywhere in the world. So how did they reach out to people? They reached out on LinkedIn, they reached out on Facebook, they reached out on university network. Like this, if you know what is the problem worth to be solving, your problem solving methods will come out, and the way to approach to solve this problem also will come out easily. So there are many ways of doing it.
Yes,
You
sir,
can always
exactly.
look at it.
So once upon a time, I started a research on some topic,
Yeah.
After 2 to 3 months, I came to know that that is not possible. Yet nobody has solution to that problem yet. What to do in this case? I mean, what we can extract some useful data from that code?
Uh, this particularly happened to me in my first 1 year of research, where a lot of my research was parallelly done somewhere in the world. And when I was about to publish, I realized that somebody has already gone ahead and submitted a publishing work of that. So I found that it is not possible. Another case which I have found with another colleague of mine was exactly as you described it. Few months down the line, you realize that it's not a worth solving problem. It is this exactly which I said is a lot of people do not identify the problem which is worth solving. They just take it up just because it is available. Right? So I generally teach people on this one and I conduct sessions on how to identify a good problem. Probably you should, some of you should attend that session where you will see a problem and find is it really worth solving. And there is a reason why somebody has not solved that problem. It is not that it is unsolvable, but nobody has taken the pain to solve that problem. So the main question should be answered is, if it is a pain to solve that problem, why was it not solved? Was the tool not available? Were the people not available? Were the resource not available? Or was the funding not available for that project? If you look at these 5 points and you answer those questions, you will clearly know why it was not solved. And that information will tell you, okay, now I know this problem is not being solved. Now let me take it up, take this work, and then take it forward. And let me apply my knowledge of problem
Yeah.
solving into another area. So right now, we will learn from that and learn and apply it in some other area. You should never worry that you are not learned it. You are trained it from one specialization, but that training is a method. That training is a process. You utilize that training and method to solve a particular problem later. So application of that problem solving skill is what you will learn in such kind of a project.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, sir, we talked a lot about research, but how can we search about our life goal?
That is a question which I myself have not been able to solve yet. But I can tell you what all solution steps I have taken to identify that. First thing I would like is when I want to solve a goal, I need to see answer mainly two questions. That is how I principle myself on that. First one, by doing a particular work or executing a particular work, are you happy? That's the first thing I will look. If you are not happy, that particular work will not take you towards your life goal.
Exactly.
And if you are not able to sleep properly by doing that work, it is not going to make you happy. Now, there are two ways why a certain thing will not make you sleep. One, if your brain doesn't allow you to sleep, meaning that means you are not find a good solution to solve that problem. But if your heart or your soul or your mind, your internal feeling doesn't allow you to sleep, means that is something wrong we have done. Brain not allowing you to sleep is good. Heart not allowing you to sleep is bad. So try to stay away something which is not good for your heart and doesn't allow you to sleep with peace in the night. So when you are
I
able
think
to sleep peacefully, but still you are able to apply, your brain is constantly working on that problem. That is something which will help you achieve your life goals. So these are the two steps which I always believe is very good to at least on a superficial level to say whether it is good or bad and it is going to be part of your life goal. Because once any activity comes in your path of being your life goal, you will already have a passion towards doing it. You'll be happy.
okay, thank you, sir.
These are the
Next
two
question
questions I
is,
have. Yeah.
I'm working as physical design engineer. Can we choose
Okay.
this as my area of interest in PhD?
Uh, Physical design engineer. Now there are few important things that you have to look at. Physical design engineer looks at multiple aspects. Now, who is a physical design engineer? Physical design engineer is a person in the industry who builds, who understands takes the RTL, then takes it, synthesizes the RTL, understands what are the synthesis, then does the clock to tree distribution, which is called STH, and does the static timing analysis. After doing that, you do a layout and placement. Once you do the layout and placement, to understand what is the following to be done. See if the clock is coming at the same time to all the blocks. If not, meeting the clocks to and do it. Now, this is the role of the physical design engineer, typically along with doing the DRC and LVS. But who is this? What is the? How can you take it for a research? There are two things. If there is a unique way of solving that problem, then it is to be research. But thing is, generally, if there is a problem, there is already somebody who has designed a flow to answer that question. So if you follow that flow and arrive at answer, that means you are really following the process. But if you are able to identify a new way of doing that same process, which is more efficient, saves time and saves power, then definitely that is a research worthy topic. But make sure that you take this topic very seriously and take it forward.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, so I would like to publish a paper in VLSI relevant to RISCV. Could you please help me with a direction?
Okay, you are looking at RISC-V processors and looking at VLSI blocks. So RISC-V processors is where you look for is a method where it's an open source process and where you can work on it. So how do you take RISC-V already is an open source code which is available. So you can probably take that code, build a small microcontroller or microprocessor using it, and use that RISC-V core into an application. Use that as an application. Now that is a tool given to you. Use it in an application. After using it in application, you will see where is the benefit that it is going to give. If it gives a benefit and it is worth and it is a good benefit that you are able to see, then that is something worth publishing in any VLSI conference. So the top VLSI conference nowadays, especially in the digital domain, are looking for that. And you can definitely take it up how it can be very useful.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, please comment on the research in the field of artificial intelligence nowadays.
Like I said in the webinar, there are many topics which are there in AI. AI is now being treated as a tool. So let me give you an example. Suppose if you have a screwdriver and you have various sizes of screws that you need to screw into. Now, if you need to find the correct screwdriver, so you can use AI as that example of screwdriver. Imagine you have a phone and you need to remove the screw in a phone. So you can use a screwdriver, but the screwdriver is going to be a very small one, which is called a precision screwdriver. Next, the screw could be something which is going to be fixed in a window of your phones. You need a screw with a different force to be used. Next kind of a screwdriver is used when you're changing the nuts and bolts of a four-wheeler or a 16-wheeler trailer, where the nut and bolt itself is the size of a few kilograms, and we use a really big screwdriver to use. So, using this analogy, AI is like the screwdriver. It can be used for a small application or a big application. Currently, we really do not know where all AI can be used, but AI is being used in multiple such ways. In fact, if you saw the Google keynote given by Sundar Pichai in 2018 and 19, where they spoke about what is the AI doing work, they're able to use it in medical diagnosis. They're able to use it in cancer diagnosis. They're able to clearly show that the time of diagnosis earlier, they're able to do it much, much earlier using the machine tools. This AI was also taken up and used in the IBM Watson. They are able to use that and show they are able to use it for detecting 4 to 5 months earlier than what a doctor would diagnose or a radiologist would diagnose, using symptoms which are pattern based. So you can use AI to make pattern recognition projects. What I mean by pattern recognition is everything is a pattern. Remember, human beings learn by patterns. When somebody says apple, you actually create a visual image of an apple in your brain, and that is a pattern that is happening. But generally, that pattern has an apple which is looking red in color. But you also know that there are apples which are green in color. That is never told in the initial pattern. But over a period of time, you learn or you train yourself that green color apples are also available, which are not raw fruit, they are ripe fruits. So, like how you train yourself, you need to train the artificial intelligence model by using machine learning techniques, and then train the number of neurons in your body. So like how you train the neurons in your head, you need to train the neurons in the machine and use that to use any kind of an application that you can follow. Most common application that you can use is pattern recognition in videos, pattern recognition in photos. Where can you use this? Using this pattern recognition, you can find out where is the recent ones I saw. You can identify if social distancing is being maintained between people. Are the two people who are walking on a street or going in a car or standing in a train or walking in a busy street still are maintaining a 1 meter distance? That is something which you can do is video recognition. Further, you can use that in diagnosis. For example, if you can look at an X-ray and then identify what is the kind of disease that a lung X-ray would have, or the lung. If you take an X-ray of the lung, you find out looking at the X-ray, looking at the various gray spots, white spots, black spots, identify whether it is an infection or whether it is fungal or it is bacterial infection. And if you can give this kind of a detail, it will help in diagnosis. Right now, if you can utilize artificial intelligence in medical diagnosis, not a medical solution, it will be a fantastic thing because diagnosis tools will help taking the human effort out of it. If a machine can do it, a machine when trained can do it very efficiently for thousands of people in a short duration of time, whereas a human doctor can only target about 100. So there is easily a factor of 10 which can come in, which can easily allow you to scale and reach out to the largest areas of the world. So AI is just a tool. You can use it in literally anything that you want.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is the form of the work is different to react with a paper.
You come again, please.
Sure, sir. The form of the work is different to react with a paper. I mean, sir, the work you did is similar to your research or you studied, or is it different some type?
So most of the papers that I wrote are generally from the work that is coming out only. So I will identify the work and do it. But there are certain papers which I would call like survey paper, which I have not written, but I have read. The survey paper is you don't have to do that work, but you need to read at least 100 papers and identify the commonality, the differences, the various trends and methods, and do that. In that particular case, we really don't need to do that work, but you have to. Your work will be reading those 100 papers and identify the various information that is coming out of them. So that is there in that.
Okay, so the last question is best resources to learn artificial intelligence other than Coursera.
Uh, Artificial intelligence is basically maths. You need to understand how good you are with maths and what is the effect that is being done. So, how do you learn artificial intelligence? Is you need to first. Coursera is a wonderful material, but I would also request you to look at courses from MIT OpenCourseWare, that is MIT OCX. And there is a lot of new courses coming out from Stanford University. There is there's a wonderful course that if I remember, in one of the colleges in Lahore or in Karachi has a good source there. Or in, within in the world, in India, there is a very good source called NTTEL. So this NTTEL is a resourceful work where lots of experts in the area of artificial intelligence have given their lectures and tools and information and material and put it up online for free so that the students can learn. So these are the various places where you can learn from AI. But you can learn AI, and the best way to learn AI is actually by doing it. So unless you do a project or do a course or do something hands-on, you will not learn AI. You can read AI any number of times and it will be just knowledge base in your mind. But when you start doing it, when you start writing those small codes and identify how machine learning can happen in this artificial intelligence domain, then is when you will see wonderful action. You need to create that web of nodes so that the nodes can talk to each other. Once they're able to talk to each other, the pattern recognition will begin, and then your artificial intelligence knowledge will actually be going very well.
Okay, so thank you so much.
You are most welcome. So some very good questions which were there. So if any more questions are there?
No, sir, it's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Javed, for your wonderful session.
Thank you. It's my
Thanks for your
pleasure.
time. Yeah, now
My pleasure.
we are going to conclude this session, and close the session.
So all the people who would like to reach out to me can reach out either through Twitter called Kick Consultants, or you can reach out to me using any of the available information that I have shared, which I will share on the screen right now. So you can reach me by email.
It would be great. It would be great if you share your email ID.
Yes,
Question
I am
can
currently
access you directly.
reach out to me by email at gsjaved at itp.org. So this is the easiest way to reach to me. Or if you, and I would definitely request you to follow me on LinkedIn and on Facebook, which is called King Consultants Education, and where we will be spreading more such information about my future projects, which I do, or the various programs which I am doing. I will be able to share it with you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you can definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel where a lot of these videos are going to be placed. The same name with King Consultants Education. If you look it up on YouTube, you will find this. So you can subscribe and get updated about the various videos that I will keep sharing on the knowledge basis of already available. There are many videos on topics of research methodology, design thinking, and innovation also available there. You can definitely go there and gain some more information about it.
Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, so our next webinar will be on Monday, 11th of May 2020 at the same time. Dr. Mariam Rehman from Faculty GCU Faisalabad will talk on personal development. Dr. Mariam Rehman is Chairperson, Department of Information Technology at Government College University Faisalabad. Prior to joining GCUF in 2018, she served as teaching faculty at Lahore College for Women University, Lahore. She completed her MS and PhD from Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand in 2009 and 2013 respectively. Dr. Mariam has participated in various national and international conferences and workshops and has more than 30 papers in different national and international journals. Thank you so much for your attention. We will email e-certificates to you within 1 or 2 working days. If you have any query, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much all for your attention and joining the webinar. We will send you certificate individually for each webinar by email to all of you. And yes, the individual certificate, not a collective certificate. And thank you very much. The next session will be really amazing. It's on personal development. It's one of the most essential part of everyone's life. So I highly recommend all of you to must join the next session as well. So thank you very much. Now we are closing this session. Thank you, Dr. Javed. Thank you, Abdul Rahman.
Thank you, Hamza, Mr. Hamza, for talking. It was a nice day.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to connect with you.
Sure, we will stay connected, and any of the other people who would like to stay connected, you can either stay connected on Insta. My Insta handle is g.test.channel, So like,
For sure,
or
for
look me
sure.
up on Facebook, where it is still GS Javed on Facebook. I'll be glad to help you out. And all the people who are looking for some mentors, definitely reach out to me. We can look forward.
For sure, for sure. If someone have any question, he can email directly to Dr. Javed, or he can email to me, and I will pass it query to Dr. Javed. Thank you very much, everyone. Now I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you for joining. Stay blessed and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye bye.